Welcome everyone once again. We're very thankful that you have chosen to join us online, watching Clovis Seventh-day Adventist Church and our live stream. So from week to week, it has been our goal, our desire to bring you guys just a quality amount of content and interviews and panel discussions on relevant issues. Most of the ones that we've covered, over the past few weeks have been related to the pandemic and a lot of nuances with that. As you know, if you are not living under a rock and you live in the real world, you have been seeing a lot of protesting, even riots and looting. You're seeing potentially a growing divide between the people and the police. And we recognize that we're living in some pretty interesting and crazy times, to say the least. And so from that perspective, I was very convicted to reach out to the Clovis Police Department and to try to see if we can connect with the Chief of Police. And so we're going to have an amazing interview today with Chief Kurt Fleming, and I'm very thankful, Kurt, that you've joined us here today. It's an honor.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, let's make sure you're on there. Okay, good. You're there.
All right. Can you guys hear me?
There we go.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate any opportunity to come and talk to the community, especially be welcome into your church here today. So thank you.
Awesome. And one of the reasons why I reached out to Kurt is because I'm on the Nextdoor app, which allows you to view what's going on in your own neighborhood, what people are saying and what they're sharing. And someone posted a response that you gave to the death of George Floyd, who most of you know was the African-American gentleman who was killed by killed by a police officer in Minneapolis. And so I saw that response, and I was very impressed by it, and said, you know what, I would love to talk to you and just kind of pepper you with as many questions as I possibly can. So I've got a lot of questions today. We may not get to all of them, but I'm thankful that you're willing to answer them. So the first question, though, is just tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are, what led you into law enforcement.
Well, I'm born and raised in Fresno, California. Attended Cooper Middle School, so kind of northwest part of town in Fresno. Attended Bullard High School, went on to Fresno State where I got a bachelor's and master's degree. Met my wife of now 20 years. We've been married for probably 18. Have a son that's a 10-year-old son. And as far as law enforcement career, my brother-in-law was in policing with the Fresno Police Department. And I was in college, and I was kind of conflicted on what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a teacher, wanted to be a doctor originally, but then I had to take chemistry and found out that it's not for me. So I ended up going into law enforcement, criminology, and later starting my career with the Fresno Police Department in 1999. In 2006, I was called to move over to Clovis and kind of worked my way up through the ranks, and in August 5th of last year became the Chief of Police,
awesome.
which has been amazing.
Very cool. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
So what do you love most about your job?
Really starting out, it's just having the opportunity to serve the public. Now it's serving in a different way, leading and providing for my officers, really our officers as a community, what they need, and then what our community needs. So I think more I'm now working with other city departments, working with the community, and kind of directing our police force to provide that best police service that we can provide.
Awesome. So, obviously we're in the midst of a climate and an atmosphere in our country of unrest socially. When you as a human being and as a police officer saw, that video with George Floyd, what was your initial reaction, your gut response?
Well, I think when we did put that message out on Friday, we felt that we could not be silent in this situation. It was so egregious that we had to speak out, because if we didn't, we're really condoning it. When I watched the video when it first came out on, I think it was Monday night or Tuesday, as a human being, I was angered by it. It wasn't right. It wasn't justified. As a law enforcement officer, I was probably even more frustrated and angry, just because anytime anybody does anything wrong in law enforcement, no matter where it's at, 2,000 miles away, we have to answer for it. The trust of the community is called into question. Here in Clovis, we have done nothing wrong, but we still need to answer for the actions of others. So we just felt that we had to put something out to the community to say, we don't condone this. What happened is wrong. We don't train this. Our officers don't do this. If this ever happened here, it would not, well, hopefully that would never happen. But again, nobody's perfect. And I will say that our officers at some point are probably going to make a mistake. But we hope that we build that trust with the communities to come out and say we made a mistake, and the community would trust knowing that who we are, that we're not perfect, and mistakes will be made. So
from what you saw, you can clearly come to the conclusion that the kind of restraint that was used against George Floyd, basically a knee on his neck for almost 9 minutes, that you would say that was not an appropriate kind of restraint. And maybe I can ask this question too, how does Clovis train its police officers when it comes to use of force, which obviously is sometimes necessary?
Yeah. What happened that everybody's seen in the video, it is not even close to appropriate. It's not close to anything we've trained. The only technique that we train and very rarely use that has anything to do with a person's neck would be a carotid hold. Really, that's a hold that it appears like a chokehold, but in reality, you're ensuring you don't block the airway. You're cutting off blood flow to the neck, and once somebody goes, the purpose for that, if somebody goes unconscious, we immediately stop. We put on handcuffs because that's the whole goal that we're trying to accomplish. Gain control of the situation, immediately put that person to a recovery position so they can start to breathe, and immediately call medical attention. That in our policy, which anybody can go online, our policy, entire policy for the police department and what the expectations is for our officers is online. Anybody can go on and read exactly what our use of force policy is, when and where a carotid restraint or carotid hold could be used. That's completely transparent. There's a lot of information that's on our website that we provide to the community. Our governor came out yesterday and basically condemned the carotid hold and said that he's immediately recommending that training be discontinued for that hold. He oversees POST, which is the police officer standard in training, which we all train under, and the guidelines are for that. He's ordered them to stop allowing that technique to be trained. So I think we'll see legislation coming along to either completely eliminate it, which I would be opposed to, because anytime you can use any less lethal option versus using lethal force, I think we need to allow our officers, we just need to ensure they're trained properly and how to use
do what
those
they can
techniques.
do to make sure that even they're safe.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So, and I think you'll say yes to this question, but it's a question obviously can also go deeper, and that is with what's happening obviously on social media with the many videos that are out there, and the news reels just running constantly showing protesters and police. Are we seeing a growing divide between the people and the police? And a follow-up question to that also is, what does it feel like to be a police officer in this current climate?
Well, to answer the first question, a growing divide, I don't think so. I think you've seen a lot of peaceful protests in the nation, but most of the things that the media has pushed has been the things of violent protests, violent clashes with, and I would hesitate the violent clashes if they were with protesters that were truly protesting for George Floyd in that situation, or is there a different agenda behind what they were trying to accomplish? So it's tough to answer because I don't truly know the motivations behind those that were violently looting or rioting or assaulting the police. So that's difficult. I know I can speak to what I have control on here in Clovis, and I think we have a great relationship with our community. The Fresno Clovis area, the protests that you have seen have been peaceful. Downtown Fresno, we were involved with just the coordination and working with the Fresno Police Department, and they had 2,000 to 3,000 people downtown. Then it went very peaceful. We've had a few protesters here along Sean Willow, Herndon and Clovis last night. Very peaceful, have not had any situations of violence. So I can only speak to here. And I think everything's been
Peaceful,
done
yeah.
appropriately. So, for as far as being a police officer in today's day and age, it's difficult. Every time something like this happens, it tarnishes our profession. It makes it more difficult to recruit people into law enforcement. Prior to the whole COVID-19 pandemic, we had 9 vacancies, so we had the authority to hire 109 police officers. We currently have 100, or actually 99 as of today, but we had 9 vacancies, and it was extremely difficult to find qualified, good candidates to do this job. And our department's very strict on who we hire. We rather go without than get the wrong person. We want to have the right person. We screen our people thoroughly. And when we get somebody, we want them to be here for 30 years as a career here in law enforcement, and they're part of our family.
Yeah.
Just to kind of expand on the difficult times to do this profession, I get questioned a lot of times. I have a close friend, a family friend that I grew up with that is African American, and after I got sworn in as a police chief last year, I had a kind of a family gathering after, and his mom was sitting down talking to me, and she said, "How come you don't have more African American officers at the Clovis Police Department?" And I thought, well, you know me. It's not because we're excluding people of color or of other diversity. It's because it is extremely difficult just to hire any officer of any race, let alone African American. And a lot of that is because they're stepping out into and being second guessed from, I guess you would say, both sides.
Yeah.
I have an African American female employee that's a non-sworn employee that goes out and deals with the public. And in the last week, she's had several times where she's been questioned about the line of work she's doing. She's been told, how can you work with the people that are killing your kind? And that's tough to put that person in that position to come into this line of work. So it's challenging now. It's going to be even more challenging as we go forward to try to hire and recruit people into law enforcement.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer. Now, what about someone who says, I have felt unjustifiably harassed by the police, or, every time I interact with them, it seems to be, negative. What would you say to either that person or to that perception that's out there that police are always harassing people of color or people of a certain, group or nationality or socioeconomic class?
Well, we definitely don't train that. We train all of our officers to treat everybody as if it was your family. If I went out to a call and somebody just stole somebody's car, that's your mom's car, and you're doing everything you can to get that person's car back. And for Clovis, we have a 95% satisfaction survey response from our community. I think we're doing the right things, but there are people out there that have a perception. You pull somebody over and they might be, gripped onto the steering wheel and crying because they think that they're going to be killed right now. And that's a problem for sure. And that's something we need to figure out how to address that and change those perceptions. If you'll let me share a story about.
Keep going, yeah.
So my wife has a good friend, or wasn't a good friend at the time, but is now. And so I had just met her, didn't know her, and we went to dinner. And just talking to her, she's African American female that lives in Clovis in an all white neighborhood. And during the conversation, she knows I work for the police department, that she feels that our officers have in the past come out to her house only because she's African American or singled her out. I didn't know her, and I was offended by what she'd said. And I said, if you ever feel that way, call me, you know me. Let us look into that, because we do not accept that in any way. So 6 months later, she calls me and says, this happened last night, or early this morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm out loading my car up, and I walk out, and these 2 police officers in a car pull up, and they question me to what I'm doing. And she goes, because I'm black in a white neighborhood? And I said, well, let me look into that, and I will find out what's going on, and I will deal with it, and I'll let you know. So first of all, we don't double up officers, so I already knew that it was probably a training officer and a trainee. So I already knew who to ask that works that shift at that time of day. So I called the officer and I say, tell me about this situation this morning. He said, oh, we had a rash of vehicle burglaries at the block over. We got called in and we were circulating the neighborhood because we had information that the person was still in the neighborhood.
Right.
He said, we drove around the block. He goes, I know exactly what you're talking about. The lady's car was backed in, her trunk was open, and her front door was open. As we pulled up, we see this, and we think, man, maybe the house is being broken into, so we slow down. She comes out the door, and we said, hey, how you doing? Is everything okay? And she said, everything's fine. I'm just loading my car. And they said, okay. He said, we were friendly, we waved to her, and I told him what her response was, her reaction, and he was blown away. He said, we were super nice and respectful. He said, there's no way she should have that impression. I said, well, that's the impression she has. So I took the time, I took her to lunch, I printed out the call, and I showed her. This is the call we received. We were out there working a crime. We were circulating the neighborhood. Thought your house maybe was being broken into, so we slowed down to look. You came out, and this is the situation. This is the perception. This is where they were coming from.
Right.
Obviously, you have a different perception. So since that time, every time I see her, I think I've helped to change. I think so. One step at a time. As people have these perceptions, please call us. Let us look into it. Let us explain what the situation was, right, so we can slowly change what maybe reality is in some situations.
And that's really cool. I think that's probably what it takes to actually change that, because people try to change someone's mind through, a social media rant or whatever it is, and that really doesn't do it. It takes real life interaction and going that extra step, an extra mile, to make sure that people can get their perceptions, I guess, broadened, because everyone has a version of truth and something they went through. So I think that's a pretty amazing story, and really cool to hear how far you were willing to go just to do that. Now, there are obviously questions about when someone encounters a police officer and they receive commands, do they have to obey those commands? And we've seen probably a number of videos out there, because that's what everyone looks at a lot of times to shape their reality, of maybe an individual who's given a command and then they do something differently, or folks who, even during this current protest, maybe officers are advancing or telling the person, go and do this, that, and the other, and there is either an unwillingness to do it or resistance. So a two-part question is, when an officer gives a command, what are safe responses? What should be the response? And then also, is there ever a justifiable reason for questioning an officer or resisting?
If an officer is giving you commands, I would recommend that you follow them. If you follow what's being directed, we should never have the reason to ever put hands on, use force. Unless we're arresting you, then obviously we have to put hands on to place the handcuffs on you. But just following direction, a lot of times you might start questioning the officer but not have the reason why they're there. Maybe a robbery just happened where an officer got shot, or some civilian got shot, and a black car was leaving that location, and your car is a black car a block away, and we're stopping your car because we're trying to find this person and stop them from committing further crimes. You don't have that whole reality of what's going on. So, and for us to stop you and then you immediately start questioning and not following direction is only going to escalate the situation. So I would always recommend that you follow along with what the officer is telling you. If when the end of the stop is done and you're not happy with what you're being told, or how the situation went, then get a hold of a supervisor. You can go online to our website and file a complaint online. Every complaint we're legally obligated to everyone comes to me, and then I assign them out to be investigated, and I can guarantee you all of them are taken extremely seriously. They're all gone through by our legal counsel. We make sure that we're doing all the proper things that we need to do. Anytime we use force, if you read our policy online, the officer needs to notify a supervisor. A supervisor has to come out and talk to the person force was used against and get their side of the story and find out what they're saying. Document the injuries, ensure medical attention has been offered. they have to write a report to me and advise me of that force was used and this is the situation. And then based on the supervisor's recommendation, we might open up internal investigation into that use of force. There's several things put in place to ensure that contacts with the community go properly.
That's good. And if someone, say for instance, says, hey, I want to see change in my community, or I believe that there has maybe been a rash of a number of bad interactions between people and police, what is, a safe and legal way to protest that, or to seek for change or advocate for change? Like, what would be the best way of doing that?
Reach out to us if you have ideas. I'm not saying that you have to come to us, but I would say, get a group together and start finding out what change do you think would help law enforcement do their job better. Maybe reach out to us and find out how that change would affect us. Look at it from both sides. Maybe get a group together, a panel discussion. I might be doing that next week on Facebook Live with a community activist that is looking for how do we make change and how do we make things better for law enforcement in the community. I don't know that we have a problem here locally in Clovis. I think we're doing a great job. Go on our website. We just put out a report to the community on the things that we're doing to engage the community. And if you look at this report, I have it in here, but it's on our city's website. And there was pillars established under Obama's administration. 21st Century Policing Task Force was established under Michael Brown after that situation happened, and some others that they established a task force. And how do we create best practices and things that law enforcement can do to engage the community and make things better? So we had three of a lieutenant that's actually sitting back here, a sergeant and a corporal, that are all going to a master's program through San Diego State University, which we highly encourage education in our department. And during this course, they said, hey, take your department, take these pillars that this task force came up with, and what is your department doing to meet these recommendations? So that report that they put together, they brought it back to me and said, we think we should put this out to the community. It's really good information. So they consolidated that into one report. It's on our city's website. And we're probably going to make that an annual report that we put out to the community. So it talks about transparency, our body cam program, the things we're doing to engage the community, the things we're doing to recruit a more diverse workforce, all the things that we're trying to do as a local police department.
That's cool. And I heard that some departments are developing like citizen review boards. I don't know if Clovis is attempting to do that. Is that a good idea? Or is it just case by case as far as city by city? What do you think about that?
I definitely think there's some cities, some departments where there is a lack of trust with the community and things that have gone on where that might be appropriate. Yeah. I don't know here in Clovis that honestly that we've had situations that would put us we're to that point yet.
Right.
I think if the community demanded that at some point, then absolutely, we have nothing to hide. We'd be willing to do that. But I think there are some places it's necessary. Here at this point, I don't think it would be necessary to do.
And what can, say, a community of faith, like, our church, we, like we mentioned before, we were talking a little bit, and we have one of our members is absolutely dedicated to providing, snacks for the officers. You guys have used our parking lot for years as a hub and a connection point, and we appreciate that. We love the interaction and the interfacing with Clovis PD. What else could a church do to partner with, to assist with what you guys are doing, big or small?
We have a community collaborative. Our chaplain program is established. We're trying to engage all the churches in our community to kind of share, so we're not all duplicating the same thing. So when we do community events, that we're not doing something here, then the next week you guys are doing something as well. Maybe we can join together, join resources, and engage the community together as a whole. So we've done that. We've kind of established a website. It's like everything. If you're not constantly attending to it and reaching out to people, it kind of dies on the vine. So we're open to definitely engaging the churches. We ask that you pray for us, pray for our families, pray for our community, pray for peace and healing during these times. We ask for all those things.
Good. And this will be the final question. It's been really eye-opening for me. A lot of good information and balanced education that I think that you're providing to us today and those who are listening and viewing. to be able to help make more intelligent decisions as we look at what's happening in the world. This is a more localized question because in doing my own research, I didn't know this, and I used to live in Clovis, so I would say a pastor here in Clovis. I found that Clovis has been voted very recently as one of the safest cities in California. It's also one of the #1 best places to live if you have a family. It's just a number of things that are making Clovis just an amazing place to be, an amazing place to live. What do you feel are the contributing factors to this notoriety that is being given or coming out in regard to this city?
It's everybody always says it's the safest city, and you guys are doing an amazing job as a police department. I think 10 of the last 12 years we're the safest city in the valley. But we are doing good work. We have good school district here, but it really comes down to the community. We have a community that's engaged, that cares, that call the police. They are willing to talk to the police and be a witness to when a crime occurs. And without that, we would be powerless. We would be unsuccessful. So it really is, truly a Clovis way of life has been preached. Every department within the city, from public utilities to parks and recs to our senior center, everybody is truly in it for the right reasons. And I think that combined with the community is what's made us so successful.
That's awesome. Well, Chief Fleming, I'm very thankful again for the opportunity to be able to sit next to you and to talk and to chat and to ask you some questions. And just, again, thank you for the wealth of information that you've provided to us. And also, we're hoping for this to be something as a church, a bridge building moment with a key leader in our community. And hopefully we'll be able to do this maybe again with you another point in time under some different circumstances. And again, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys all for having me. I appreciate it. And anytime I'm open to come out and talk.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again.
All right.